Hello, my name is Sarah Payne. I'm a quilter and welcome to my sewing room. Now today's tutorial is going to be a quick and easy skirt. Okay, I know I say I'm a quilter, but I do like a nice easy sewing project. This is one of those things that you can wake up in the morning, look out the window, think, oh, it's going to be a sunny day today. I'm going to make myself a new skirt to wear to work. You can literally make this skirt in 15 minutes and I'm going to show you how. So just quickly to go through the requirements for this, what you're going to need. First of all, tape measure. This is for measuring your waist and the length that you want your skirt. Some pins, because we always need to pin. Elastic. Now the elastic needs to be comfortable around your waist with a little bit of overlap. So I go for about ½ inch. So measure your waist, add ½ inch, and that's going to be your elastic. You've got if you've got an overcasting foot with your sewing machine, this is a great opportunity to use it because it's actually going to allow you to just neaten the edges of the inside of the one visible seam on your new skirt. If you don't have an overcasting foot, you could cut your seams with a pair of pinking shears or stitch it with a zigzag. It just keeps it all neat and tidy so it doesn't fray in the wash. And then finally, your fabric. So the fabric that I've chosen for this project is this one. This is beautiful. It is Heather Jack's Ombre Trends by Craft Cotton Company. This is the coral version. It's got that lovely design in there, that lovely little floral pattern in a really cute pink, sort of coral pink. I have also, by the way, selected a thread to go with this. I'm going to use the for the top stitching around that's going to be visible. I'm actually going to use one of the Gutermann Sulkies from, this is the Candy Pack. I really like to use a nice quality thread when I've got a little bit of top stitching to show around the waistband and on the hem. So first of all, how much fabric do you need? Well, this is very simple skirt, as I say, because it's made of a big rectangle. So in order to work out how much you need, first of all, measure around your waist. So take that measurement and add 10 inches. So if your waist is 40 inches, you will need 50 inches wide of fabric. If your waist is 36 inches, you'll need 46. Now I'm doing this with one piece because I happen to have enough fabric in this this particular bundle. It came with 2.5 meters, and 2.5 meters for me is enough to make 4 skirts out of this one piece of fabric. But if you're piecing, then just divide that width in half, add ½ inch seam allowance, cut 2 pieces and then seam them, and you can have the seams on either side. When you can do it in a single piece like this, you just have one seam which goes down the back. How long do you need it? Well, measure from your waist to the point on your leg where you want it to stop. In my case, I wanted an 18-inch long skirt. Then add 4 inches to that measurement. So in that case, 18 inches becomes 22. So this will be 22 inches that way. And in my case, this will be 50 inches all the way across. Now, just keep an eye on the direction of your fabric. If you've got a direction, you've got to think about making sure that, you know, if you've got skeletons on it, they're not upside down or, you know, anything like that. So, but this, it's non-directional, so nice and easy. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to deal with that back seam. And you are literally going to do 3 lots of sewing to make this whole skirt. So first of all, we do a seam around the back. Now, I'm just putting them right sides together. And if you want to, you can pin it to hold them in place. I'm just going to go straight to the sewing machine. Now with dressmaking, we use a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. On my machine, I've actually got a little line on my plate, on my sewing machine plate, that shows me that 5/8 of an inch. I'm going to start off with a little back stitch. We don't normally bother with those back stitches when we are doing a quilt because everything is encased. But with dressmaking, it's a good thing to do. So I'm just going to very quickly sew all the way down the back. I don't want to sew too fast because my table is a little unstable, and if I sew too fast, I knock the camera over and then I have to start all over again. So let's just go through with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm doing a straight stitch, and for this, because it's just doing the back, I'm just using a standard weight cotton, again Gutermann. Right, and then back stitch, and I've done my back seam. Now, to make this nice and neat, I'm actually going to use my overcasting foot to go across the seam there. You could do it before you sew them together and then have two overcast edges, or if you haven't got an overcasting foot, you can, as I say, cut it with pinking shears, and that will keep it nice and neat. But I'm just going to grab this. Now, with my machine, I do have, this is a Brother, it's the FS130QC, and I do have an overcasting stitch, which is great for medium weight fabric. So that's what I'm going to use. I've popped my overcasting foot on. Actually, if I just bring it in to show you what it looks like. This is an overcasting foot. It's actually got a bar in the middle, and this stops the zigzag becoming chewed up as it goes along the edge. It's very difficult to use a zigzag stitch on the edge of fabric without an overcasting foot. But for me, the stitch I'm going to use is stitch number 6, because with this particular machine, that's good for medium weight or lightweight fabrics. So I'm just overcasting along the end, and this will stop any fraying when I pop it in the washing machine. Again, we don't have to whiz through this. Right, so take that off. And there you go. You can see, if I hold that up to the camera, you should see that there is a really nice neatened edge on the edge of my seam there, and that will stop it fraying in the washing machine. So next we're going to choose the top and the bottom, because I'm going to hem the bottom. So in order to do that, you could, if you've got a blind hem foot, use your blind hem foot on here, but I'm not going to worry too much about this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fold my fabric over by 1/2 inch and press it, and then fold it again. That will keep all the raw edge inside so that I'm not going to get any fraying. I could overlock all the way around the outside and then just have one. So if you want it slightly longer and you want to make more use of the small amount of fabric that you've got, you can do it that way. But I quite like to have it all tucked in like this. So I'm going to go to the sewing machine, go to the ironing board in a moment, and press that over twice so that we are ready to do the hem on the bottom. So I'm just going to go and do that now. I shall see you in a moment. So I have been over to my ironing board, and I have actually pressed my bottom seam. So you can see there, I folded it over twice, about 1/2 inch, folded it over twice and pressed it nice and crisply. But what I did at the same time was I've actually gone on and pressed the tubing for the casing for the elastic, but I'll come to that in a moment. So what I'm going to do now is, first of all, I'm going to do my finish off my hem. So I've decided from the candy that I'm going to choose the Gutermann thread. I'm actually using this very pretty pale pink because I think that will look quite nice against the coral. Okay, so first of all, I'm just going to thread up my machine. Drop my threads everywhere. I think it's always worth investing in good threads, because a bad cheap thread will just spoil the best sewing machine that you've got. It will actually make your sewing look awful. Now what I've done there is I've just pushed out the very end of my thread, because this is a new thread. What you don't want to do is just stick that straight onto your spool pin, because you'll get glue on your spool pin, and over time that'll get sticky and it'll impede the free flow of your threads. So let's pop that on there and put my spool cap on top and thread it onto the machine. So the joy of an automatic needle threader. Right, so now I'm good to go. I've put my standard foot back on because I'm no longer using the overcasting stitch. Now the other thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to pin, where my pins have gone, just add some pins to hold my stitching in place, because what I don't want to happen is that, you see where it's coming untucked, because I'm going to sew from the top. I'm going to top stitch, so I'm going to sew from the front of the fabric and I'm not actually going to be able to see underneath, so I need to be sure that it doesn't come untucked. So let's just stick some of these pins in very quickly, because it's nice to make sure that everything holds in place, because you get all the way round the bottom of your hem, you take it off the machine and discover the little teeny bit of it has snuck out, and then you've got to unpick a whole load. So to avoid that, just use some of your pins. Now, talking about the width, I did say earlier about adding 10 inches. If you want a fuller skirt, you just add, say, 12 inches if you want something that's going to be a little roomier. I wouldn't go too much below 10 inches because you do actually want to be able to move in your skirt. If you were to make a skirt for the exact measurements of your waist, for a start it wouldn't take into account hips, which most of us, you know, do have, but also you wouldn't be able to move comfortably in it. And this is a fun skirt, you know, we want to be able to jump about. Right, so I've pinned very quickly all the way around. I'm going to go to my sewing machine. Now when I pop this under, I'm going to start on that seam. Let's turn it through properly. That would make life a little easier, wouldn't it? Let's just give that a shake. There we go. Now I've got my extension table on here. I could actually take the extension table off, which I think I will actually. Let's just slide off my extension table. It's not sort of a tiny sleeve arm, so I don't really need to. It just makes it a little easier to see. So let's find that beginning seam. There we are. And now what I want to make sure is that the position of my needle, when I sew all the way through, that I'm going to catch that seam good and proper. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pull that thread out to the side. I'm going to hold on to the top thread, and I can grab it, drop the needle down and pull it back up again, and that will allow me to keep hold of that bobbin thread and tuck it out the way. What actually I should have done before then is I want to move my needle position to the left, so I'm going to adjust the stitch width. That's it. Just put it there because I want it to be a little, I sort of want it to be more than halfway across the width of my stitch. So now that I've moved my bobbin thread out the way, I'm going to do a little tiny stitch, and then I'm going to do a back stitch and another one, and now I know that everything's nice and secure. When I come to the end, I could actually just sew that stitch, the two pieces of fabric, sorry, the two pieces of thread into my fabric, and then we just roll around. And I always like to have a check before I go too far that I like the stitch, you know, that I have practiced, you know, I've tested this, so I know that the stitch length is good. But just make sure that your bobbin's full. You know, if you've run out of your bobbin right at the beginning, it's really annoying if you get all the way round before you realise. So take your pins out as you go. I really don't want to sew through my pins. Some people don't mind, but I'm always afraid that I'll catch it one day just wrong and break my needle. And don't worry if your bottom hem, your stitching is a little bit wobbly. Nobody's really going to be looking that far down your knees that closely. They're going to be admiring your lovely skirt. Right, and now I'm coming back to the beginning. Just a little bit of a back stitch just to secure it, and then I'm going to keep these ends quite long so that I can sew them in at the end. Right, so there's my hem now, and you can barely see it with that pink. I think that's really lovely. Right, so finally, so that's the second of the three that I said you need. Now finally we need to do the casing for the top of the skirt. So I've just pressed this in readiness. My elastic that I've chosen to use is 7/8 of an inch. So in order to make a casing for this, I want to add 1/2 inch to that, because I want to be able to slide this in and out without it getting, you know, too stuck. So I have folded over at 1 1/4 inch and pressed, and then folded it over again like that. So I've now made a casing inside. So then I'm going to pin this, because again I don't want it to lift up, because it is a quick skirt, but that doesn't mean it needs to be sort of badly made. Right. This is a great skirt actually for the little ones as well. If you've got a granddaughter, a daughter who wants to start sewing, the perfect way is for them to make themselves a little skirt, because they can make this in no time at all, and then they get the pleasure of making it, they learn the skills, and they actually get to wear it afterwards. So I would love that. I would have loved that when I was 9 or 10, to be able to go out in a skirt that you'd made yourself. Would just be amazing. Right, so again, we're going to go back to the machine and top stitch. But what I do need to do with this is I need to leave a gap of about 1.5 inches in the sewing, because I need to leave a little hole for me to thread my elastic through. So just going to work out where I'm finding a line on my plate here that's going to allow me to keep my stitching as close to the edge of the casing as I can without rolling over it. So that's the point there on this one. So again, I'm going to do a little, just line that up. I can feel under my finger, you see, where the edge of the casing is, because I don't want to miss it, but I also don't want to go too far away from it, because otherwise I won't be able to get my elastic in. So drop the needle, bring the needle up, pull on that, and the bobbin thread will come up, and then lift that and just turn it out the way. So also, it's very important to do some back stitches here, because we're going to pull these pieces apart in order to get the elastic inside, and if you don't, the threading will actually come apart. So now I'm going to stitch all the way around. It's a good tip as well, if you have trouble keeping everything straight when you're sewing, you don't watch the needle, you watch either the edge of the foot or whatever you're using for your marker. For me, I'm using that line on my plate, so my eyes are going to be here, not on that needle. Otherwise it won't stay. You tend to drift in the direction that you're looking. So and we just work our way all the way around. Just stopping every now and again to take the pins out and to guide the fabric through flat. I shouldn't have to pull it at all. I've got it on the back here, not because I'm pulling it through, but just because I'm keeping it flat and stopping it tangling. The feed dogs, it's their job to pull the fabric through the sewing machine, not mine. Yes, coming up to the end. Now we want to leave a gap at the back, as I said. It needs to be wider than your elastic. So if your elastic is 7/8 of an inch or 3/4 of an inch, you need it to be 1.5 to 1 3/4 because you need to get in and out. We will sew it up afterwards, but again do a back stitch because we don't want that coming undone. So next, grab your elastic. As I said, measure it round your waist so that you're comfortable with it. And the first thing I'm going to do is I take a safety pin and I pin it to the waistband. The reason I do that is I don't want it to disappear into the end. I also don't want to pin it through the whole casing because if I do that, I won't be able to get the elastic into it. But having it there means it's not going to suddenly whip in the end and all of a sudden I haven't got any in there. So the other end, I stick my safety pin, another safety pin in, and we're going to thread it through the casing. So having the safety pin on it makes life so much easier. So let's just get started. And once you get started, you can just bunch it up and pull it through. So there we go. Now with this one, because I've only got one seam, when I've got two seams, I can easily see when I'm halfway round because I reach another seam and I think, oh, halfway, great. But only having one seam, what I do with this as well is I bunch it over the pin a bit and then pull it. And you can see it starting to gather. Now I like for my waistbands a quite a wide elastic. I don't really like narrow elastics on my skirts, partly because I think when I'm wearing them that they tend to cut a little bit. But when you've got a wide, well, any elastic really, you want to make sure that it doesn't twist in the casing, but especially on a wider one, because if that twists inside, the casing will never ever lie flat on your waist. So nearly there. So we're coming round. This is why this skirt is actually so quick, because we did a back seam, which we overcast. We did a nice simple folded hem on the bottom, and then over the top the casing is just, it's rolled over twice, stitched down, and then with elastic fed through it. So I'm coming up towards the end now. I don't worry about pulling. You can see there's still quite a bit of elastic there at the moment. I don't worry about pulling it too tightly, but having it safety pinned to the casing means that it doesn't actually, if I'm not paying attention, you know, if I'm doing this while I'm watching the TV, oh, I don't lose it. Now what I've done there is accidentally open my safety pin, which means it's going to end up catching. So just move that out of the way. And I clip that. This is annoying when it happens, because what I've done is, as I've squeezed it, I've opened my pin. So I've just got to try and close my safety pin without it catching on any fabric. Otherwise it's not going to come out again evenly. And you know that this has only ever happened to me once, and this is it. There you go. And that's it now, just when I'm trying to record it. So be mindful about pressing your safety pin at the head, which can make it snap open. Right, and then out of that final bit of casing should in a minute come my safety pin. Pull that round a little bit. Come out of my hole. There we go. And pull it a bit. Now I just want to make sure that these two pieces, or these two ends, are that they're straight all the way around. So I'm going to pull it a little bit. Just make sure that it's not twisted in my casing. And take the safety pins out. Right. Now I want to sew these two pieces of elastic together. So I'm going to pull that so a little bit more of it's poking out. But not so hard that either end disappears. Right. So basically I want them now to overlap. Okay, overlap like this. Now I'm going to go to my machine and I want to select a zigzag stitch. So I'm going to do, which one should I pick? Let's do number 3. Got a zigzag stitch there because I'm going to stitch these two pieces together. Now what you don't want to do is accidentally stitch it with a twist in it, because if you do that your skirt again won't lie flat and you will have to just snip the ends off and do it again. So let's put this under here to a zigzag. That is the world's tiniest zigzag, so I'm just going to make that wider. Now I'm going to stop stitch that there and then take my needle up and go over it a couple of times, because I need that to be really secure. What I don't want is to be walking down the street and my elastic to break apart and my skirt fall down, because that will be embarrassing. So I'm just going to move along a little bit and do another row. And then one final one. So I've got 3 rows. So if one of them went, the other 2 will continue to hold it. I'm doing them side by side as well. So don't worry that this does not look pretty, because it's going to be hidden inside my skirt. Right, so there we go. I've got 3 rows of zigzag holding that elastic together, so that's going to be nice and tight. Now what we do is just pull the skirt so that that disappears inside the casing. And you see that's now gone inside the casing, and it's all hidden. The very last step is just to sew down the outside of that hole that we left. Now this will be at the back of the skirt, so you won't see it, but go back to a straight stitch. So you most likely won't see it, but do a little, keep it neat and just follow the lines of the 2 previous rows of stitching. You're going to join them up. Right. And here we go, just even out your pieces. Now I'm going to stitch those end bits in, so I'm going to leave them dangling there rather than trim them off. But there we go, there is a very pretty little skirt that you can make in a very short period of time. You can make it to any size to fit, whether you're making it for a child, a baby, a grown-up. You can make it long, you can make it short, and it's just 3 seams. So I hope you've enjoyed that little tutorial, and I hope you're going to have a go and make a nice simple skirt. You can find me on Facebook as Sarah Payne Quilter, and if you do, please do send me a picture of your skirts. I would absolutely love to see them. But thank you very much for joining me in my sewing room today, and I hope to see you again here soon. Bye bye.